Putin admits disastrous military defeat due to weak arms. Putin made the unusual admission that Russia is suffering significant losses in the war against Ukraine on Friday. Losses in Ukraine exceed the classical figure, he reportedly said, with the Kremlin reporting that he made the statement. The Russian president acknowledged that his country's armed forces were experiencing artillery issues, but he also said, "Yes, we still do not have enough of these modern weapons, but the defense industry, the country's military-industrial complex is developing rapidly." Moscow's gloomy assessment of the war comes as Ukraine launches a series of counter-offensives designed to drive Russian forces out of the country. This recognition is a radical departure from the usual tone of Moscow's communications. Despite a crushing number of casualties and failed war plans, Putin and other Kremlin officials have consistently attempted to portray the invasion as a success. Putin said everything was going according to plan in March of last year, despite the humiliating failure of the Russian military to seize Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. Putin's worst nightmare about the bombing campaign of 2023 may have started. Russia's President Vladimir Putin doesn't appear to have given up just yet. The president of Russia made an effort to dispel the optimism that the Ukrainian counteroffensive is a complete success. But, he said, there is still hope for a military victory for Ukraine. All counteroffensive attempts have been fruitless up to this point, but the offensive potential of the Ukrainian armed forces has been maintained, Putin said. The Russian government, led by the Kremlin, has been trying to temper optimistic predictions about the war's conclusion. In an apparent effort to set the stage for a less humiliating defeat, Moscow recently circulated a memo to propagandists suggesting that Russia hasn't underestimated Ukrainian forces. A Friday update from the Ukrainian General Staff indicated that Russian casualties were increasing. According to the Ukrainian government, Russian forces have been engaged in unsuccessful offensive operations near Bilogorivka, along the Lyman axis for the past 24 hours. Russian offensives near Bodanivka on the Bakhmut axis were, albeit without success, according to the update, which also noted that Russian operations in Severn and Nevelsiki had also failed and that the Russians had suffered losses in Marinka. About 213,770 Russian soldiers have been killed or captured since Russia's invasion began in February of last year, according to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The National Security Council at the White House estimated in early May that Russian forces had lost 100,000 men and women since December. According to a report in the Moscow Times, Russia's attempts to increase military recruitment in anticipation of a Ukrainian counteroffensive appear to be failing as well. It has been reported that this year's recruitment efforts will fall short of the goal of enlisting 400,000 new soldiers. Russian President Putin takes cover after drone attack on Moscow, causes panic behind the scenes. But Ukraine still faces some difficult fights ahead. On Friday, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky told the military that they are in particularly difficult battles these days. "We see your heroism, and we're grateful for every minute of your life," Zelensky said to the troops on Friday. According to CNN, U.S. officials say Ukraine has sustained heavy casualties. The Ukrainian government has allowed for the possibility of the counteroffensive failing in its messaging. "A lot of Ukrainian soldiers are going to die in the fighting," as even Zelensky has admitted in recent weeks. Officials in Ukraine have repeatedly stressed the need for additional weapons and equipment from their Western allies. The Pentagon announced on Friday that the Biden administration will be sending an additional $2.1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. This aid will include air defense and ammunition. The new set of resources will include ammunition for Patriot air defense systems, as well as artillery rounds in the 105 mm and 203 mm calibers.